Today we will provide an overview of a case involving the city of Mitchell, Nebraska that highlights several classic fraud risk factors in small municipalities. The case arose after the Nebraska Auditor of Public Accounts received multiple complaints from the city of Mitchell concerning the conduct of its mayor, Paul Morrell. These complaints ultimately resulted in a formal investigation that centered on three primary allegations. First, there were concerns regarding the personal use of municipal equipment, which represents a form of asset misappropriation. City-owned resources were allegedly used for non-city purposes, raising questions about authorization, accountability, and the absence of effective controls over public assets. Second, the investigation examined conflicts of interest and questionable payments made to a business owned by the mayor. The city of Mitchell is also home to a municipal care center that was at the center of the questionable payments made to the mayor. These transactions raised red flags about self-dealing, transparency, and whether proper safeguards were in place to prevent public officials from benefiting personally from their position. Third, the auditor identified misleading and obstructive behavior during the audit process itself. This included incomplete or delayed responses to information requests, which not only hindered the audit, but also suggested an attempt to conceal improper activity. To understand why these issues occurred, it is important to consider the background of the city of Mitchell. Mitchell is classified as a second-class city with a population of approximately 1,500 residents. Like many small municipalities, it operates with limited staff, meaning officials often wear many hats. While this structure is practical, it increases reliance on trust and significantly weakens oversight. As a result, the mayor held substantial influence over daily operations, creating an environment where conflicts of interest and misuse of assets could occur with minimal detection. This case illustrates how weak internal controls, combined with concentrated authority, create significant fraud risks in small government entities.
Municipal fraud is a serious issue that often does not get enough attention compared to other forms of government misconduct. Overall, government fraud cases represent the fifth highest median loss among organizational categories at about $200,000, higher than banking and financial services, healthcare, retail, and many more. Despite representing the lowest percentage of fraud cases within government at about 23%, the financial impact of municipal fraud is oftentimes felt greatly within a community. One of the key vulnerabilities at the local level is a limited staff and lack of oversight, which creates opportunities for fraudulent activity to go undetected. In small towns like Mitchell, Nebraska, and many others throughout the country, the mayor or city manager needs to be entrusted with a high level of oversight to compensate for the lack of opportunity to implement segregation of duties. Despite the risks of municipal and government fraud, only 58% of government organizations implement fraud awareness training, leaving employees and officials without the tools to recognize and prevent misconduct. Another important point is the role of leadership and accountability. Interestingly, executives are responsible for only 19% of government fraud cases, which suggests that fraud is often occurring at lower levels of administration where oversight is weaker. However, when fraud is perpetrated by an executive, it results in the highest median loss at $313,000 compared to $224,000 and $50,000 for managers and employees. When fraud is uncovered in government, it is more likely to be referred for prosecution compared to other sectors at 73%, reflecting the expectation of the public for municipal employees to be accountable with taxpayer funds. All of this highlights the importance of preventing fraud in government and why the facts of this case are so important.
This slide focuses on the first allegation identified by the APA, the personal use of municipal equipment by the city of Mitchell's mayor. According to the APA's examination, Mayor Paul Morrell was alleged to have used city-owned equipment for personal purposes, which falls under the category of asset misappropriation. In this case, the equipment at issue included a city skid loader and a side-by-side utility vehicle equipped with weed spraying attachment as shown here. The APA received photographs showing this equipment being used near the mayor's personal residence, and when questioned, the mayor stated that the equipment shown in the photographs was personally owned, not owned by the city. However, the APA did not rely solely on those statements. As part of the examination, the APA requested ownership documentation. The mayor submitted a Form 6ATV, which identified a blue 2022 Trail UTV as the vehicle he claimed to own. This documentation became important because it did not match the vehicle shown in the photographs here. The photographs instead appeared to show a red Kubota UTV, and to verify ownership, the APA contacted Sandberg Implement, a local farm equipment supplier. Sandberg confirmed that the city of Mitchell had previously purchased 2 red Kubota UTVs. To further confirm this, the Scottsbluff County Sheriff Office verified the serial number of the city-owned red Kubota UTV. The serial number matched the vehicle located in the city's shop. This verification contradicted the mayor's claim that the vehicle was personally owned.
All right, thanks, Josh. So this slide here summarizes the third allegation, which is the excessive payments made to the handyman. The handyman was a private business owned by the mayor, Paul Morrell, and the auditors identified the 12 payments. They looked at 12 payments that totaled $47,448, and these were made between 2023 and 2025, and they were made to either Morrell personally or to his business. 3 of the 12 payments, which totaled $16,998, lacked city council approval altogether, even though council approval is required for expenditures. So the main key concern here, though, is that the payments were issued from center accounts, and Morrell himself was an authorized signer on the center accounts, so he basically signed checks paying his own business. From a fraud risk perspective, that represents a clear conflict of interest and creates opportunity for management override of approval controls. Auditors also noted that the invoices lacked detail and supporting documentation, like they didn't have labor hours or rate justification on them, making it difficult to verify what the charges were for and how they came up with the amount to charge. And even though some work may have been legitimate, the structure of the arrangement increased the risk of misuse of public funds and reduced transparency. So then the third allegation was the most serious from the auditor's perspective, which was the obstruction and misleading behavior during the audit. First, Morrell provided false statements to the auditors regarding ownership of municipal equipment, claiming personal ownership when records later showed that the equipment belonged to the city, as Josh kind of already mentioned earlier. Second, when asked, the city clerk also gave inconsistent explanations about who controlled the care center's finances, which conflicted with bank records showing both the mayor and clerk as authorized signers. Morrell also denied receiving payments from the center, despite those payments being clearly documented in bank records. Auditors were additionally provided incomplete bank statements and bill listings, which limited their ability to trace approvals and establish a clear timeline. From a fraud standpoint, misleading auditors weakens external oversight and makes it more likely that problems will go undetected, which can ultimately lead to statutory and legal consequences for the city. Under Nebraska law, willfully misleading or obstructing a state audit can result in criminal penalties, which is why this allegation significantly elevated the seriousness of this case.
The aftermath. In response to the deficiencies, the APA made several suggestions within the report regarding improvements that the city could make. The APA is unable to require the city to make any changes. However, the suggestions included, first, in regard to the asset misappropriation, the implementation of procedures to ensure the city personnel do not use municipal resources for their own personal gain. Second, all center funds must be presented to and approved by the city council prior to the release of payments. Additionally, supplementary documentation must be presented to support these claims. Finally, the incorporation of controls to ensure that the city complies with APA requests with full honesty. This specifically relates to the RTV ownership, the misleading responses in regard to who controls the finances at the center, and the failure to fulfill each request that the APA made for documentation relating to the case. The city responded to these suggestions by commenting that the city is working alongside their new care center team to fully review all records, agreements, and handbooks. They plan to incorporate new procedures to increase efficiency and transparency, which include the APA suggestions. The case has been forwarded for further investigation to evaluate the need for legal action in relation to the violation of state statutes. The Nebraska Attorney General, the Nebraska Accountability and Disclosure Commission, and the Scottsbluff Attorney will conduct these reviews.